Parikshit, representing from the technology, and this question for you. What would be the basic requirement for any technological acceptance? How are you going to tell a customer, yes, this is required, and you are at an advantage if you're accepting a technology-driven FM service?
So thank you, Mohana, and welcome. Good afternoon to all the delegates, to all the fellow panelists, and for you and your team for putting this up. And I hope all of you are safe and your families are secure. Now, I'll break down this question in two parts. One is the awareness, because I heard my other fellow panelists talk about things which I think they need to be supported with if they are to drive the new regime of digitization. And I always feel that if you see the telecom industry, if you see computing industry, India has always gone for hop, skip, and jump. So we had a supercomputer much before all our offices were equipped with a computer. So I think the digitization wave is going to be far, far more faster than North America or continental Europe than in India. And I'm going to talk about that in the course of the next 15 odd minutes. Not in this session, but in probably other questions. I'll break the question in two parts on how can we as a community, when I say a community, I'm considering the service providers and the end customers as a part of the same community. Because to usher in change, you need to work far more closely than what we are doing today. The first thing is digitization is on steroids. So there is no two ways about it. And if we are to say that cost is prohibitive and therefore we can't do it, I think somebody else is going to do it and we're going to fall behind. So there is this whole conundrum of cost versus adoption that has got to be put at rest. And we have to find innovative means, and I'm going to share some of them. The second is, and I was talking to some very, very senior digital technologists and digital scientists in North America. Their view is that this is akin to the Y2K. So many of us in our 40s and obviously beyond 50s know how the information technology industry really got a tailwind due to this Y2K. So I foresee this as a Y2K impact. And I'll give you empirical evidence for that. McKinsey ran a study just a few months back, and they talked to about more than 100 plus Fortune companies, Fortune listed companies. They found that in 2019, all these companies were using 35% of their products and services which were digitally enabled. Okay, come to 2020 August, in the global scenario, from 35 it went to 55%. Okay, from in APAC, which is closer home and something that we can talk about, relevant to our context, from 33% it went to 54%. And in North America, which is probably the most mature market, it went from 41% to 60%. Now coming more closer to our conversation, that how do we make technology and digital solutions acceptable? I think the first way of explaining, or the first principle of explaining it, is define the problem and define the magnitude of the problem and the complexity, that problem, and the cost of the problem that you are riddled with. Okay, and like Angad said that, and I heard some of my other fellow panelists talk about, that there are certain things which are running at 60 kilometers, which is a decent speed, which probably was not there. So people have identified key stacks of problems and clustered them as priority, intermediate priority, will look after later. So in that sense, so complexity and therefore the cost of that complexity is the first way that customers and service providers need to identify that what is important in that service account. And there is no one size fits all. So we can't say visitor management is the problem in a account, could be, but may not be in the other. And what is the financial impact? So if you invest and if you bring in certain kinds of digital solution, how much impact would it give it to the service provider, and how much would it give it to the end customer and their employees? The second important point is adoption challenges. Some of the most intriguing, and I ran a service business for several years in this country. The biggest problem was collaboration with IT. Most complex FM digital solutions need participation from IT, and that's where the cookie crumbles. The most problematic issue is data secrecy, data security. And that's where it gets into virtually a true firewall. Huh? CIOs and CTOs would keep talking about facts that my data is not secure. But bear in mind, inside their offices, their employees use Zomato, their employees use Swiggy, using the kind of geolocation of where they are. So I think that is a myth, and we as a community need to really build up a ring-fenced approach to say, hey, don't live with that myth. Let us challenge that myth, and I can build it later on. Reliability of solutions. Many digital solutions today are offered which are not reliable, which cannot be scaled, and there are adoption challenges saying, hey, ye kaam nahi karta hai, this other thing doesn't work, or something you promise is not being delivered. So reliability, and most important, you can't build a digital system which lived 10 years back. So you have to adopt to the ecosystem. The systems must be 5G compliant, because most of the transaction for any digital system has got to be on a mobile device, correct? So how are you building the product is going to be very important. And the last part, and I'll take 30 seconds for that, to convince technology adoption, Mohan, and to all our colleagues here. The first principle in India and specific to Asia is cost. So let's solve the cost puzzle. And there is a puzzle, and I can help you understand where's the puzzle, that everybody can fit in within their existing cost without having to add costs. Okay. Having run a business, I can say that with fair degree of confidence, but I don't want to really dwell on it. So to convince adoption of technology solutions, cost conundrum need to be addressed. Second is demonstrate benefits, especially from people who are early adopters. So if people are using, and some of our solutions are being used, other digital solution companies, their products are being used, let those early adopters really help others understand how they stood to benefit. And last but not the least, the end users, which is our blue collar team members, employees in the offices or the workplaces, find it easy. So if you really address these 7-8 levers, I think technology adoption can be faster, quicker, and really that's what we are going to see. And I'll talk later about that.